Have you ever wondered, how did your childhood influence development of your personality? Why can't you remember your earliest memories? That's because during your first years, your brain works like a sponge. It constantly gathers information from the outside world and builds itself.
Okay, so scientists say that first 1000 days, or about 3 years of your life, are crucial for development of your brain and therefore you as a person. Many traits that you will develop depend on your genetics. However, you're not growing up in a vacuum. Your surroundings have a very strong influence on you. And since you're a baby, you're not able to take care of yourself. So people who take care have decisive influence on you. In most cases, those people are your parents, thus combining genetics and environment in one strong factor. I would say parents are really important then, right?
It seems like they are, and scientists have noticed that a long time ago. It's not surprising that we have many theories about parental influence during the childhood. In one of those, Diane Baum introduces two key dimensions of parenting: emotional warmth and parental understanding on one side, and parental requirements and control on the other. By further development and research of these two dimensions, scientists Maccoby and Martin came to four basic parenting styles of upbringing: authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and neglecting. Authoritative educational style is characterized by the closeness of parents and children. Parents set reasonable limits, provide suggestions and guidance, but allow open communication with children and allow some degree of freedom in decision making. Children respect their parents and believe in their judgment and benevolence. Authoritarian style is distinguished by imposing unrivaled parental authority. Communication between parents and children goes only in one way. Parents issue orders, children listen and execute. Parent-child relationships are tense and rigid.
Permissive upbringing style is characterized by not imposing any special requirements or restrictions on children. Parents like these do not oppose their children, they have trouble controlling them. Parent-child relationships are usually good. They are the best companions to their children, but the guilt is usually paid too late. So often children do not make as much demand as they can without demand. Neglecting upbringing style is distinguishes parents who are actually neither involved nor interested in their children. Children of such parents exhibit the most emotional and behavior problems, exhibit a particularly low level of self-esteem, self-control, poor school success, and a tendency to act aggressively. Now, the way your parents raise you affects your personality and therefore your influence to the society. During your lifetime you will influence other people in a good or a bad way. Most people influence only people around them, or maybe slightly larger group of people, depending on their work and popularity. However, some people are affecting millions of people with their acts. Even more, if you took in consideration that they change the life of future generations as well. We call these people historical figures, as they have shaped the history of mankind, in a bad or a good way. So, can we say that their parents also did that? For this little analysis, we are taking the really important historical persons, the ones that don't need introduction. Also, to minimize the effect of other factors, for example, historical period, or cultural or religious background, every one of them is born in the late 19th century in Europe. And each of them affected the lives of the millions, probably yours too. So, let's look at the sum of them and connecting them with four basic parenting styles of upbringing we already talked about.
Adolf Hitler was born in 1889 as the fourth of 6 children of Alois Hitler and Clara Peltz. His family was relatively wealthy since his father was a customs officer. It was his father's third marriage and he was 23 years older than his wife. There are some indications that his parents were related. Adolf, with his sister Paula, is the only child that survived childhood. Educational style: authoritarian. Emotionally cold, as he didn't receive love either from his mother and father nor siblings, and high expectation and control.
Now, up to second case, Joseph Stalin. He was born in 1878 in Georgian city of Gora as a third and the only surviving son of Bessarion Djugashvili and Katrina Georgia. His father was a shoemaker and he was quite rich, but soon after Joseph's birth, his business failed and he became alcoholic. In a drunken state, he would often beat and abuse his wife and young son, so Stalin's mother decided to move to a relative and raise her son alone. She raised him strictly in a deeply religious spirit. The mother was relatively warm and caring, but the father was violent, so emotional warmth was a bit higher than Hitler's, but still quite cold. On the other hand, Stalin's mother had very high expectations and put her son in a lot of control, greater than Hitler's. And now let's focus on Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. He was born in 1870 as a third of 8 children of Ilya Nikolaevich Ulyanovsk and Maria Alexandrova. His father was a professor of physics and mathematics, and his mother was also a teacher. 2 of his younger siblings died at birth. His father was a zealous Christian, and after his death, when Lenin was only 15, he rejected the faith. Lenin's parents were educated and caring. He was close to both his father and mother, and especially his brother Alexander and sister Olga. We have no records of the abuse in the family, so it's safe to assume that emotional warmth was pretty high. On the other hand, parents had certain expectations, but they were not too strict.
Fourth case. Winston Churchill was born in 1874 as the first of the 2 sons in the marriage of Lord Randolph Churchill and Genet Churchill. His father was a nobleman, a member of the highest class of the British aristocracy, and his mother a wealthy American. He spent most of his childhood separated from his parents. He hardly knew his father. His father died in 1895. He went to prestigious schools and had nannies and servants. Emotionally cold and inaccessible parents, he was hardly ever seeing them. As for the other aspects of his childhood, we have mixtures of little control. Little Winston had the freedom to do what he wanted, but on the other hand, his parents had expectations of him.
So, now we have these 4 historical leaders sorted out in 4 parental styles. What can we conclude from this? Well, it's hard to take some certain assumptions, but we could try to get some ideas by comparing this picture with their political ideas and acts. First of all, it's obvious that Churchill was the only democratic politician here. Others were dictators. And Churchill is the only one below the line of parental control and expectation. He was raised in a most liberal way than others. Kinda makes sense, right? What about family emotional warmth? The only one that has positive emotional warmth here is Lenin. But then, what Churchill, Hitler and Stalin had in common? Churchill was a British conservative politician, and Hitler was a German far-right dictator. Both of them are on the right side of the political spectrum, in contrast to Lenin, who was clearly a leftist. But what about Stalin? Isn't he a communist? Well, yes, nominally. But if you look inside the communist society like USSR, he was actually a right-wing, conservative person. During his reign, many liberal reforms that were brought by Lenin were repelled, like a right of a woman for abortion or freedom of art expression. And yeah, did I mention that he was anti-Semitic? Why there are no people in this corner here? Well, maybe because people raised in that style had all privileges without effort, maximum work from parents, and zero expectations and control. Sounds great, but that parental style will obviously not make you a non-historical person.
So, maybe we are on to something here. Of course, in order to prove any theory, you need hundreds of examples and hard scientific research. Our intention was only to briefly touch this topic and make some open questions. Let us know in the comments what are your thoughts about this topic and what was your parental style.